Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the most popular McDuffie County themed podcast, McDuffie Minute. We bring you what you want to know about the governments of McDuffie County, Thomson, Deering, school system, and all points between. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Smith.
And I'm Christopher Wells. During the summer of 2022, the Thomson High School Bulldog players announced they would be doing an ambitious 3-show season this school year. The first 2 shows were huge successes, so today we're talking to THS drama teacher Wesley Walker about the resurgence of the drama program and the upcoming show Into the Woods. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of the McDuffie Minute. I've listened to every episode, and I think it's a great asset to our community and, of course, the school system, which I'm very passionate about. So I do thank you two guys for having me, but also for continuing to do this podcast.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thanks for listening.
Of course.
It intrigued me when I saw Into the Woods. My daughter, at some points, is a budding actress. Other points, she wants to move to something else. But she did Into the Woods with the theater group in Warrenton. Uh-huh. So I'm very familiar with that and the challenges that go along with just that play. But I know that in a lot of cases, you only do 1 or 2 a year. How did you decide to be really ambitious and do 3? And what's that like in terms of balancing what you're doing?
Well, I chose to do 3 because my kids had been begging me the first year I was at Thomson High School to return to the children's show, which had kind of been cut because of the pandemic. And we also are trying to expand our drama program, not just musical theater. And so we want to be successful in the one-act competition, which is a GHSA sanctioned competition. And so in order to achieve those things, we have to have 3 shows. We have to have a one-act, we have to have a children's show, which this year was Elf, and then we have to have our typical spring musical. And so really the reason for that was the kids. They just were asking me, can we return to all these traditions that had come before that kind of had been X'd for several reasons, but the main one, of course, being COVID. So that's why I chose to do that. It is ambitious, but thus far we pulled off 2 good shows, so I'm hoping our 3rd one will be the same.
Gotcha.
I saw the first 2 shows as well, and you can't help but notice there are a lot of talented students in the program. They all seem like they really enjoy what they're doing. What's it like to be able to teach and direct that group of students with that level of talent? Yes,
we have an extraordinary set of talent, which I don't think is unique to our community. I think that it takes the right person and the right process to sort of garner some of that talent into the performances that you see on our stage. But I do think across the board in most communities, there's this level of talent. However, we have an extremely gifted senior class. Kyra Strong, Madison Dawson, Josh Rabin, Deasia Dawson, Jacob Posey, and several others who are just on the next level of creativity, the next level of being able to perform at a level that is not typical for high schoolers. And so being able to work with them, it just makes the job easier in that we don't have to teach some of the skills that typically you would have to teach to high schoolers. I came in and they were already prepared to do character development and analysis. They're trained singers and actors. Of course, several of those students, 4 of them that I named, have done productions outside of Thomson High School, namely the Augusta Junior Players. We have several students that are in our current production of Into the Woods who are in the Augusta Junior Players production of Sister Act, which is going to regional competition. So they have all of this experience that has really nothing to do with me. I just get to come in and, sort of put them in a show where they are going to thrive, and they're just so easy and wonderful to work with.
So you graduated from here. You're a native. Tell us about how theater became significant in your life, and then how you ended up back here in McDuffie County, passing that on to the next generation.
Yes, I'm a graduate of Thomson High School, and of course that means I'm an alumnus of the Bulldog Players, which is our theater arts program at Thomson High School. I started loving theater because I saw a production of Brigadoon at Thomson High School. It starred Marianne and Laura Knox. Laura Knox is one of my greatest friends now. But at the time, obviously, they were a lot older than me. And they used a scrim. And I don't know if you know what a scrim is, but it's a sort of sheer curtain that crosses the stage. And Brigadoon has this sort of fantastical element where they're in 2 different worlds. And they use that scrim, which is still hanging in our auditorium to this day. And it was magical to me. And that was just a high school production. And ever since then, I begged my mom to take me to every Thomson High School production every year. And then, of course, when it came time for middle school, my sister was in the Bulldog Players productions. She always got the lead. So I begged the musical theater teacher at the time if I could be in West Side Story when I was in the 7th grade. And so she allowed me to do that. And so I did musical 7th and 8th grade as well. And, I just got hooked. And so subsequently I went to school, kind of lost my interest in theater for a little bit. You know how that goes.
Sure.
But then I came back to it. I moved to New York in 2013, and I lived there for about 7 years. And I worked in theater production or theater development, which really has to do with how you spend money, who pays for what, things like that. I worked at the Public Theater in New York City for about 7 years. And then I moved to Atlanta. I worked at the Alliance for a little bit before the pandemic hit, and that's how I ended up back in Thomson. And the pandemic obviously ruined the theater industry for 18 months. Right. Nobody could go to shows. Nobody could be in shows. So that put a ton of people out of work.
Right.
So I needed a job.
Yeah.
And, to be frank with you, my whole family has been in education. All 3 of my immediate family have worked for the McDuffie County school system. Right. My sister currently still works for the McDuffie County school system. And I had sort of avoided it because various reasons, but I just wanted to do something different than my parents did. But
I know the feeling.
Right. When I came back to Thomson, the best option to make an impact on our community to me is to work within our school system. And so I pursued it, and it took a little ways for me to get here. I was a parapro first, and then I was a special education teacher. And then the position became available for me to teach drama and music. And so I had to get my certifications and all of that in order. But luckily, that's where I have landed now. And the reason I'm here is because I don't know if I would care about teaching so much if it were elsewhere. This is Thomson. This is my home. And I care about the kids in this community. And I just care about this community at large. So it really, really makes a huge difference in me being able to get up every day and work 13, 14-hour days, knowing that the impact is on my community where I came from. Yeah. And so that's why I ended up back here.
Well, it's always makes me happy to see people who have the option to leave,
right,
but then choose to come back and stay involved.
Yes.
I think that involvement is always much more significant and more impactful than people who are just here.
Well, and let's face it, you have to leave, in my opinion, in order to gain experience and to see the world in a way that you wouldn't see it growing up in McDuffie County. And so, of course, I'm grateful for being able to have done that. But I'm glad to be back and helping in any way I can.
In many places, it's usually a constant budget battle to keep arts in the curriculum, but we don't seem to have that as much of an issue here in McDuffie County. Can you tell us why it's important that kids are exposed to art, music, theater, etc.?
Yes. Well, first we have to talk about the budget, because you're 100% correct in that so many systems and even community theaters and things like that struggle with the budget. And that's not to say we have an outrageous budget, but, first we have to shout out Dr. Michelle Rhodes, who is an absolute superstar at budgeting. I have to shout her out. And the other thing that has happened is that Dr. Rhodes and Dr. Cato and Dr. Tam have really invested in our program. Dr. Cato has chosen, along with Dr. Rhodes, to pay for our licensing for all of our shows out of instructional funds, which is different than me having to fundraise to pay for those things. Right. The reason they're able to use instructional funds is because I teach it in class. I teach a musical theater class, and we work on the music, and we work on costumes and this and that and the other. And so that is a really innovative way of thinking of them to say, you know what, this is instructional. We're going to use our instructional funds, of course, which is a bigger budget than my little fundraising budget that I have. And so it really makes a massive impact. We don't have to get into specific numbers, but it's very expensive to license a musical, especially one as popular as Into the Woods. So that has been really, really helpful. What was the second part of your question?
Let's see. Why is it important to have kids exposed to art, music?
Oh, well, I think the number one thing, without me, I could talk about this till tomorrow. So I'm going to try to keep it short in that the best thing about art and theater is that it teaches empathy. It teaches us how other people might live that might be different than us. It teaches us stories of people who we might not have ever heard of. It also allows us to see ourselves in other people, even if they look like us or don't. So I think the number one thing is that you see a huge growth in empathy in the children that I teach. I call them children, they're high schoolers, but when I first get them through when they leave, it's very evident to me that through telling these stories and through developing these characters, they've learned to understand themselves better and to understand their world at large better. So, without me talking about it all day, I think that's the number one thing that's important about exposing kids to art and theater.
Right.
So moving to the next show, can you tell me a little bit about it and what the plans are, what the dates are, when the tickets go on sale, etc.?
Yes. So Into the Woods, we are taking on an extremely difficult musical, which Jason alluded to earlier. But so it's written by Stephen Sondheim, who we just lost in 2021, I believe. He's probably the most premier and prolific musical theater composer of our time, of all time.
Right.
And, this is sort of our honor to him, first of all. And then secondly, we chose Into the Woods because we have the cast to do it. It's such a difficult show, but it's also an ensemble piece, and that there are many, many, many leading players, and they all have solos, and we have the ability to do that because we have this outstanding group of kids right now, like I said, led by our seniors. Yeah. I do want to say we also are going to have a full 15-piece orchestra, and that is led by the magnificent Thomson High School graduate, DJ Brown. He is our musical conductor and director. He's just next level gifted person. He's a student at Boston Conservatory now, right. But he is taking his spring break to come and music conduct our musical. He directed the kids before he went back to school this semester. He taught them all the music. So we're really lucky to have him. And then, of course, 14 other musicians, some of whom are students at Thomson High School. We have some really gifted players, and then others who are professionals. The dates are March 23rd through the 25th, all at 7:30 p.m. Okay. Tickets will be on sale today. By the time you listen to this podcast, the tickets will be on sale on GoFan, which is how Thomson High School sells their athletic tickets and performing arts tickets. Right. And then you can also go to bulldogplayers.org if that's easier for you to get to, and it will link you to GoFans. Right. And so that's the easiest way to go about buying tickets. You can also buy tickets at the door. I recommend buying them ahead of time, but if you need to buy them at the door, you can buy them in cash at the door. They are $10 general admission. So if you want to sit up close, I recommend getting there early. But general admission, we don't do any reserved seats.
So that's all the dates and times and ways to get tickets. But can you tell us a little bit about the play itself? What happens? Just give us a little bit of a hint.
Of course. So full disclosure, Into the Woods is my favorite musical of all time. Okay. I've been in 2 productions of Into the Woods, one at Thomson High School in 2003. It is an amalgamation of several different Brothers Grimm's fairy tales. So we have Cinderella, we have Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk and his mother, we have Little Red Riding Hood, we have Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, we have Rapunzel, we have a witch. And then we have 2 characters that were created by James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim, who wrote this musical, the baker and the baker's wife, who are sort of original characters that this story revolves around. And so essentially the show is about all of these characters wishing for something, which is what most shows are about, and how they go about achieving those wishes, and also what the consequences of getting your dreams and wishes are. And so it's a very complicated, dense, deep, nuanced way of looking at wishes and our dreams, but it's also beautiful and poignant at the same time, and hilarious. And luckily we have the comedic skills. Our students have the comedic skills to pull these incredibly difficult comedic beats off, and so I'm really excited about that. I do think that the music is grand and in a way that old Broadway was, that we don't necessarily hear anymore, and these students are singing it outstandingly. And so I really look forward to showing this off for our community.
Perfect. So you've heard it here, how to get tickets and get excited for the show coming up. Now, this has been one of the most successful Bulldog Players seasons in a long time. Would I be wrong in saying that?
That's very nice of you to say.
All right. What are you going to do to follow that up? Can you give us an idea, like some hints about what you're working on for next year?
Well, you sound like my students. Every day, Mr. Walker, what are we doing next year? What are we doing next year? And, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell them. I have no idea, because I'm just smack in the middle of trying to get this current show done. Right. However, I do work with the Rising Seniors. So, for instance, this year, the Rising Seniors helped me choose our season. And so the Rising Seniors, after this show is over, come April or May, we'll have a sit down and have a conversation about what's coming up. I will say we're going to try to stick with our same schedule, a 1-act show, a children's show, and then a spring musical, of course. And we'll just have to see where it falls. Of course, it has a lot to do with who our cast is going to be, who I still have available. There's a lot of circumstances that go into how you choose a musical. And then, of course, over the summer, we try to do something fun to announce our season. That's become a trend in a lot of musical theater programs across the country. And so, I thought it would be best for us to follow that same trend. And so it really excites the students. So I'll have my seniors, again, help me create this project, whatever the project might be, to announce to our students what the season will be. And so that usually will be announced right before open house in July.
Okay.
So coming off that, it's been a really successful year so far. You've gotten accolades, and obviously I would assume that that's picked up some community support for the players. Talk to us a little bit about that and the importance of their role in the whole play process.
Well, I come from sort of a marketing, how to pay for things background in my professional career, theater career. And so my goal with this program is to hit all aspects of what a professional theater company would do, which is put on productions, but also you got to be able to have people fill your seats. And so there's a lot that goes into marketing. And so I have to shout out Mr. Sean Kelly, who does all of our posters. We design them, but he prints them beautifully and he delivers them to the school. I don't even have to go to Deering to pick them up. And then, of course, there's been so many businesses and even individuals who have supported. The first person to ever support me, it was Miss Ruth Knox, who gave me a good donation for our musical last year. And then this year we have Dr. James Limley and Dr. Jacqueline Fincher, who supported us. We've had 2 State and Watson and Knox. The Face Place has supported us, and several other businesses. And then, of course, my goal this season is for the students to be making those phone calls to these businesses saying, hey, we're doing this musical. We would love your support. And so they can buy program ads, or they can just simply sponsor us in some way or the other. And, of course, as much help as we have had from our board office, we've had equal amounts of help from our community members, and that is essential to keeping this program going. On top of that, we've had such a better turnout in our box office than we have in the past. This year, I looked at the books from the previous teachers. Elf, our children's show in December, had the highest box office since 2012. Now, there are circumstances around that. I don't exactly know how much money they charged per ticket in 2012. Right. It doesn't say that in the books. But it does look like that the numbers have significantly increased over the past couple of years. We had a great turnout at Elf, and I hope that we have the same when Into the Woods comes.
So if someone was looking to help, what are some things you need? How do they get involved? That sort of thing.
Thank you for asking that, Jason, because we always need help. I mean, to be frank with you, other than DJ, I'm pretty much a one-man operation. But I'm going to spill my secrets here in that I can't sew. I'm not good at makeup. I can't make wigs. I can't build sets. And so all of those things we need help with. Now, our construction department and our art department, led by Mr. Stephen Watley and Miss Tina Swan, really, really do an outstanding job of helping with our sets. But we could always use people who are good at painting, who are good at sewing. Sewing is the big one, because if we ever have to use costumes that don't fit a student, we simply just have to have somebody to sew, which I have no ability in. So anybody who is a seamstress, please reach out to me, and I will put you to work somehow.
All right.
But anybody who has some sort of skill, artistic skill, we will be able to utilize that. So if you want to help, I'm always welcome and willing. Also, we have Miss Heather Brown, who is our choreographer. She's the other person who really helps out. She has a dance background and was a professional dancer at some point. So anybody who has those skills, even if they don't use them necessarily in their everyday life anymore, and they feel like they want to pick that back up, please come help the Bulldog players at Thomson High School. We will be glad to have you.
All right, so we've talked about community members getting involved. What about students who want to be in your program? How do they go about getting into the shows? What about classes, that sort of thing?
Okay, so I teach 2 sections of drama and 2 sections of musical theater each year, plus 2 chorus classes. So if they want to be involved in a show, the best thing to do is to register for one of my classes. Okay. Up until this point, it has not been a requirement because we're building. So we need any and all available students to be present. However, it makes it so much easier if they're in my class. For example, my 4th period class this semester is all of my leads, my advanced musical theater class.
Right.
We can block during class, we can work on music during class, and it's so much easier, and it adds that extra hour and a half that we don't have after school. Yeah. I mean, it has made a huge, significant impact. So the more our program grows, I am leaning towards making it a requirement that you're registered for one of my classes in order to participate in the show. That's not going to quite happen this year or next probably, but in the future that will probably be a requirement. You must be in Mr. Walker's drama or musical theater class to be involved in the production.
All right.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Wesley. And to reiterate, Into the Woods will be March 23rd through 25th, 7:30 in the Thomson High School Auditorium. If you want to go, you can get tickets at bulldogplayers.org or on the THS GoFan site or at the door.
Thanks to all our listeners for logging on and tuning in. As always, we hope you continue to find ways to get involved in the many great things we have going on in McDuffie County. By doing so, you can help make your community a reflection of you.
So that's a wrap on this 8th episode of McDuffie Minute. Thank you for listening, and when you get a chance, take a minute and learn more about McDuffie County.